As I was driving here today, I was thinking, why is eggnog only available 45 days a year?
I don't know. It's weird.
It's delicious.
I know.
It's so good.
I know. It's gross too, but anyway.
Okay, I propose we change the name. Thick Milk, 2 C's. Eh?
Yeah, there's no lawsuits that could ever come up with that name
With that, no.
or HR or
Nowhere.
anything.
Just,
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, welcome back to the Vinyl Word Podcast. As always, I'm Steve Beach.
And I'm Brian Mayer. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, and I am Eric Evans today.
Yes, he is.
Versus other days.
Really just depends on what
state
state I'm living in at that point, honestly.
Right. But no, Eric is here. He usually, always writes with us for the jokes that we write, but we have the privilege of having him in the studio today.
Yeah.
So we are coming from the Greenwood Public Library, as always, for as long as they'll have us and put up with our loud noises that we make here in the studio.
I said I'd be good.
Of course, you can always reach us on Facebook, Vinyl Word Podcast. And also, as always, if you read the episode summaries, there's a little link that says text us. So you can tap that and you can send us a quick text and we'll go, thank you for contacting us. Share some thoughts, whatever. We'd appreciate that. And then also
on X, we do a joke a day or, a joke every day or two, somewhere in
we
there.
just do a few a week, yeah.
Yeah.
So normally about this time, we check in with Charlie Cutler, but he is out Christmas shopping right now.
Yeah. Good for him.
He's a little busy.
Yep.
So we're not going to check in with him today.
All right.
But we are going to delve into, since it is the Christmas season, we do have a record called The Christmas Star.
Uh-huh.
And if you're avid listeners...
I'm assuming it's about Mariah Carey.
Exactly.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
Congrats to her on her run of number one hits.
Right. It's called The Christmas Star, and if you are an avid listener, we did another record by the same guy.
Mysteries of Mars.
Yes.
It wasn't good.
No, it wasn't. But it was very good fodder for our podcast.
It was. I remember that episode clearly because at one point I took off my headphones, walked away from the mic, and screamed boring really loud.
I remember that. That was a good time. So that's what we're gonna listen to today is The Christmas Star. Anything else, Brian or Eric, you guys have before we get into this?
I've got a rash, but I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Right. And I wanted to say at the end, we are going to have a little bit of an extra kind of year-end summary sort of thing that we'll do.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
I'm excited to get into the record. So without further ado, let's drop the needle and get this going.
All right.
In a world.
Welcome to the world of 2,000 years ago.
When the Rolling Stones
That's
first
the
began.
historical setting as we turn our thoughts backward in time to the night Jesus was born. Consider the heavens as they were then, and seek among those stars one that might have been a natural Star of Bethlehem.
Or a Hollywood star.
No one knows, of course,
Hollywood
precisely when Jesus was born.
I want to say July
The Bible
4th.
doesn't give us the date. The historians of the time let it pass without notice, until a century or two later, and then they disagreed drastically.
The first wrestling match.
Today,
Let's get ready to
when we try to
rumble.
establish that date as best we can, we find ourselves enmeshed in a net of historical confusion. It is confusion
Dysfunctional.
compounded by the fact that a different calendar was in use in those days,
Gregorian,
different
Google,
from the one
Outlook.
we use in many respects. Most important was the fact that the passage of years was counted from the legendary date of the founding of the city of Rome.
Oh, more pizza.
That date
And
is
lead
usually
poisoning.
accepted as 753 BC, although there is no complete agreement even on this.
Can't agree on
Persons
anything.
living in that time would have thought of the then current year as, for example, 750 AUC, the initials standing for
Not
the
a car
Latin
company?
phrase
Yeah.
ad urbe condita, year of the city. It
Condata's
was
Latin
not
for
until the year
sword.
533 AD, Anno Domini, the year of the Lord, as we reckon
Anno
time,
Dominos, the year of the
that
pizza.
Dionysius Exiguus, then the abbot of Rome,
Hey,
first
abbot!
suggested counting the years from the date of Jesus' birth. To fix that date, Dionysius referred to the 2nd century historian and religious philosopher Clement of Alexandria.
Oh, my darling.
He
Oh, my
himself set the
darling.
date
Oh,
of
my
the birth in
darling
November of
Clementine.
3 BC. But Dionysius adopted instead a statement in his writings that it occurred during the 28th year of the reign of the Roman Emperor Augustus,
Did you say emperor?
a date which
Yeah, you
Clement
know it's the
attributed to
emperor.
other
The
historians.
peace.
Augustus became emperor in the year 726 of the city. Dionysius simply added 28 years to that and concluded that the year of the birth was 754.
Cool.
And ever since then,
We've been
counting the
idiots.
passage of the years as though that were so.
The passage of time can
But if
only
there's
be
one
measured
thing
by
we are
sadness.
certain of, it is
Wow,
this
French
simple
philosopher.
fact.
We-
Jesus was not born the number of years ago
He wasn't born?
indicated by the calendar on
Not at
Christmas
all.
Day. Nor, indeed, is it likely he was born on Christmas.
And me with no pearls to clutch.
Dionysius is less than reliable.
I mean, he didn't even graduate high school.
Know, for instance, that the birth did occur during the 28th year of Augustus, as Dionysius assumed.
Assumed.
Clement, his prime
Bless you.
authority, certainly doubted that date, and if it were correct, there would still be uncertainty. Augustus was not always known by that name.
He went by Gonzo in his childhood.
It was as Octavian that in 42 BC he defeated Brutus and
And
Cassius
Popeye.
at the Battle of Philippi, and as Octavian, 11 years later, that he scattered the fleets of Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium
And took the
and
fight to
became
Mordor
the
for one ring.
undisputed leader of the Roman legions.
For there were many.
It was
Wrong
not
story,
until
Brian.
4 years
Ow.
afterward, however, that the Roman Senate proclaimed him as Augustus.
Later as Septemberus.
Which period of his reign did those ancient historians employ when they referred to the date of Jesus' birth?
Oh, I know.
What are
I know.
they gonna-
Well,
it's gotta be
It's a jackal! It's a jackal! It's a jackal!
As would seem more likely, the total span of his leadership. There is no positive answer,
Oh, I was so
nor can we
close.
You
assume
were
the
not.
birth occurred
Children.
in the 28th year by either reckoning. And so, to determine this date, so important to the Christian world, we must unravel the skein
Foreskin.
of an historical detective story. We find the chief clues in the Bible.
Blue's Clues?
Blue's
In the
Clues.
book of Matthew, where
Of
we're
McConaughey.
told that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king.
As opposed to Herod, the accountant.
Obviously, if we knew when Herod died, we would know the latest possible year for the birth of the Christ child.
Okay.
Chapter
The
2.
first century Jewish historian Josephus
Just Joey,
records
please.
that Herod died shortly after a partial eclipse of the moon.
A
that was
total
seen at
eclipse of my
Jericho,
heart.
and shortly before the Jewish feast of the Passover. There was just such a partial eclipse seen at Jericho on May 13th in the year 4 BC. And in that year, the Passover, as determined by the motions of the moon,
And the motion of
began
the
on
ocean.
April 12th.
Baby.
Thus, we cannot be more than a few days away from the truth if we conclude that Herod died about April 1st in the
On
year
April
4
1st?
BC.
Nice try,
A generally
Herod.
accepted date, and that Jesus was born sometime before that. How long before?
Just a smidge.
Again, we find a clue in
Or
the Bible.
skosh.
Ooh, Colonel
This
Mustard.
time,
With the rope?
it is in the
In the
book of
library.
Luke, where we read that the reason that Joseph and Mary returned to Bethlehem, where they found the town so crowded there was no room for them at the inn,
Come on, Joseph, call
was
ahead.
because of an edict that had gone out from that same Caesar Augustus, decreeing that all the world should be taxed, and all went
Because I'm
to
the
be
tax
taxed,
man.
each to his own city. Considerable confusion surrounds the dating of this passage.
Yeah, my
and
wife
until
dating me was
recently,
confusing,
of
too.
little help. But in 1923, archaeologists working near Ankara, Turkey,
Is that like
came upon
Ankara,
a Roman
Alaska?
temple
That's
inscription
Anchorage.
Oh,
that
my bad.
recorded the major dates of taxation under Augustus.
It was devoted to Abacus,
only
the god
3.
of accounting.
And of
Hey,
these,
Abacus!
only one could possibly apply to our problem. The year was 8 BC.
Disco was in full swing.
Jesus, then, was born between the years of 8 and 4 BC. Transportation and communication in those days were slow,
Like
a
AOL
matter of
dial-up
travel
slow.
by foot and by horse and camelback. It would have taken time for an edict to have gone out from Rome,
He said, eat
to
it.
have reached Palestine on the outer fringes of the empire,
Against the rebel
and
fleet
to
of
have
the
been
forest
acted
moon of
upon by
Endor.
such humble people as Joseph and Mary. Time on the order of 1, and possibly 2 years. That would indicate the year of the birth was 7 or 6 BC.
So we still don't know. Come on.
The birth and the appearance of the star described in Matthew
McConaughey.
were not, of course, necessarily simultaneous.
Were they subcutaneous?
Clearly, from the biblical account, the wise men saw the star, then consumed an unknown amount of time traveling to
snacks.
Bethlehem, where they found Jesus, an infant, wrapped in swaddling clothes.
And turds all around.
It was
After
a stable
they
after
visited
all.
Herod, told him of the birth, and
Sounds
failed
pretty
to
unstable to
return,
me.
Yeah.
the king ordered the slaughter of all the children, from 2 years old and younger,
Anyone who
according
watched
to
The Wiggles,
time which
really.
he had diligently inquired of the wise men. That would indicate the star they had seen was in the heavens about 2 years before their visit, although Jesus was an infant when they arrived. We are told the wise men saw
Oh,
Herod
wise man, eh?
then a sick man
Sweeney.
near the end of his reign, perhaps late in 5 BC or very early in 4 BC, since there was time before the king's death for Joseph to flee to Egypt with his little family.
He came back for his bigger family later.
If we backtrack 2 years from those dates, we come to the years 7 or 6 BC
Make up
for the
your mind.
appearance of the star. And those years are as close
like a
as we
bidding
can
war.
come.
Yeah.
7 BC,
7
6
or
BC,
6
5, 5,
BC
5, 4.
for the star seen by the wise men and for the birth of Jesus, which may well have occurred sometime after the star appeared.
But then he got bored and left.
As to the time of the year, it almost certainly was not December 25th.
Say it
We can
ain't
take the word
so.
of the Bible for that, because in Luke we're told that shepherds were keeping watch over their flocks by night.
Yeah, the shepherds were pulling
There's
a double,
only
probably.
one time when shepherds normally spend the night in the fields, and that is when lambs are being born, in the spring.
Shepherd Doctor.
It
This
was most
spring
likely
on
in the
CBS.
spring of 7
Oh, that
or
was
6
bad.
BC then that Jesus was born. And if this is so, it leads us to wonder why we celebrate the Nativity in December.
Randomness?
Consumerism?
The
We
Illuminati?
do not know the answer, but there is an interesting speculation based upon some facts that we do know. In the early days of Christianity, it was a dangerous thing to be identified as a Christian.
I identify
It
as
invited
red.
persecution
What?
and even death. One did not, under such circumstances, go about openly announcing one's conversion to the new faith.
Or walking into Mordor?
We know, too, that early Christians celebrated the Nativity at various times of the year, many of them in January.
Heathens.
And we know that in that era, there was a great pagan festival known as the Saturnalia.
It's celebrated.
Don't
A
say
lengthy
it.
feast of
Uranus.
merrymaking, marked significantly by the custom of exchanging gifts. It was
Yeah,
held
white
to
elephant, yeah,
commemorate the
white
winter
elephant mainly.
solstice, the longest night in the year for the northern hemisphere. After the solstice,
Celebrated
the
by
days begin
heliophobes
grow
to this
longer.
day.
The warmth of the sun returns with its promise of spring. And this promise was great cause for rejoicing. Festivals relating to the solstice were common among
This
peoples of the
talk about
northern
sauce is making
hemisphere
me hungry.
long before
Oh,
the birth
Steve.
of Christ.
My sweet, simple Steve.
The solstice
Hungry.
occurs in our time on December 21st or 22nd. But in the years to which we have turned our thoughts, it occurred on December 25th. Those are the facts.
Of life.
The speculation
facts of
is
life.
that many early Christians took to observing the birth of Jesus during the festival of the Saturnalia, hoping that their own quiet observances would thus go unnoticed. If many did this, then it would seem reasonable that by the time the Emperor Constantine made it possible to practice Christianity openly, some 3 centuries later, a
Constantine,
tradition
the
would have
king
been
of
established.
procrastination.
The celebration of the Nativity at
Oddly
the
enough,
time
that
of the
did take you a while.
solstice would already have been a practice observed for many generations. That may be why we celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December, a date that was
I
not
will live in
established
infamy.
officially until 340 AD. But this is merely speculation. We cannot be sure.
Oh, you don't say.
Be reasonably certain that if we are to seek a natural phenomenon that might have given rise to the story of the Christmas
Phenomenon.
star, we must turn our minds backward to the years 7 and 6 BC.
On YouTube
For it
Rewind.
is in those skies that the wondrous
Is it you
star
guys or
about
those
which the
guys?
wondrous star about which we read
Forget
in
about it.
Matthew must have appeared.
Matthew McConaughey.
They
Matthew
were,
Broderick.
in many respects,
Dave Matthews?
familiar skies.
Oh, Brian, wrong Matthew.
The constellations, the patterns that the stars form
Always
in
the
the
wrong
heavens,
Matthews.
were the same then as now. For the stars of the night sky are suns, as our sun is a star.
And the star was light.
Those
the
of
light
night
was
are
sun.
so distant
and he was my
that-
son.
My
though
head
they move
hurts.
through space at speeds measured in miles per second, and though most are traveling helter-skelter in different
Do
directions,
you, don't you want me
their
to
motions
track
are not
you?
apparent to the human eye, even over a span of 2,000 years. The stars, then, appear to occupy fixed positions. But 2,000 years ago,
Like
as
jobs?
now, 7 celestial objects appeared to have the power to wander at will among the stars.
7 objects to
They are
rule
the
them
sun,
all.
which appears to describe a full circle in the heavens in the course of a year, because the Earth moves around it.
Duh.
The moon, which circles the Earth once each month, and the 5 naked-eye
Whoa, buddy, this is a family show.
Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, which revolve around the sun.
I think it's really funny to talk about this in Jesus' time because they all
Each
really
of
have those
these
silly
objects
voices.
appears to
Huh?
wander in the heavens at its own speed and in its own track, although they all follow
moody
the broad
teen.
path in the sky marked by the zodiac.
Killer.
It is obvious that since they are constantly moving at different speeds, the position of all 7 objects at any particular time is peculiar to that particular moment.
He's so smart.
So it is that when we begin our search for a natural star of Bethlehem,
We should
we
have a talent
begin with
agency
the
first.
positions of the sun, moon, and planets for January of 7 BC.
Or Google Maps.
For it was sometime after that the birth of Jesus took place. We should note, as we begin, that the ideas we are about to consider
Ooh,
are
I
not
can't
of
wait.
recent origin, but rather ones which have been advanced through the centuries by scientists and clergymen, historians and biblical scholars,
Custodians.
all
And
as
hot dog
eager as
vendors.
we, to know whether there might have been a natural origin for the star described in Matthew.
But which Matthew?
No, we did that one already.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Possibly the first idea advanced was that the Christmas star might have been a meteor, a shooting star, or
It's a
falling
violent star.
as it is commonly called. The
our
average
shooting stars
sporadic
out of our
meteor
schools.
seen in the night skies is a small particle of nickel, stone, or iron, probably no larger than a grain of sand.
These are the
Literally
days of our
billions
lives.
of these particles drift in the space between the planets,
Billions
and
and
millions
billions.
of them strike the Earth's atmosphere every 24 hours.
And twice on
They
Sundays.
arrive at speeds that range between 7 and 45 miles per second.
He's an awful meteorologist.
Speeds
Yes.
so great that
Meteorologist
as
is
everyone
Greek for
aware in this
liar.
age of space, friction with the atmosphere must raise them to white heat. They're consumed
That's my
miles above
nickname.
the surface of the Earth. The
consumed.
average
Nom, nom,
meteor
nom, nom,
appearing
nom.
at an altitude of about 60 miles and disappearing about a second later at perhaps 40 miles. It is not the average meteor, however.
It's an honor
that is
society.
under consideration as a possible Christmas star. Occasionally, a larger one arrives.
And bullies
and
the
it
other
needn't
meteors.
Be very big to be spectacular.
Like
A
me.
meteoroid the size of a walnut would blaze across the heavens with a brilliance rivaling that of the moon.
That's some nut.
Such an object is known as a bolide.
Ah, what a bunch of
And
bull.
if it should
Line.
explode in flight, as sometimes happens because of rapid, unequal heating of objects that were, in space, deathly cold, it is designated as a fireball.
Like the non-whiskey whiskey.
Could something like that, a brilliant exploding meteor, have been the Star of Bethlehem? It hardly seems likely.
Oh,
For
okay.
one thing, a fireball or bolide is not a rare object, nor does a meteor, a transitory phenomenon indeed, fit the description of the star as given in the Bible.
Okay, so it's not a meteor, so it's linear? Oh,
think it's
I'm
not a
so
meteor.
sorry. Oh, jeez. I'll be quiet.
Could it have been an exploding star that we seek? There are such things,
Explosion.
stars always considerably more massive than our sun, which suddenly burst. They send their hot surface gases hurtling off into space in all directions.
Kind of
And
like
they
me
can
after
be,
pizza.
For a while, the most spectacular objects in the sky. Before the explosion,
Just
the
like my
chances are that
stepdad.
such a star would have been too distant and therefore too faint to be seen with the unaided eye. At the height of its outburst, it may shine with a brilliance 50,000 times greater than normal.
That's not that much.
It suddenly appears in the sky where no star was visible before.
Where no man
And
has
as a
been before.
result, it is known as a nova, or new star.
Or a muscle
Temporary
car.
star would be a better name, however,
As a temp couldn't get promoted.
for it soon fades and passes from visibility.
Like me.
As amazing as such an outburst is,
Oh, I
it
love
is minor
Starburst. Can you
compared to
you
the
guys ever
type
had
of
those? Those are so
explosion
good.
known as a
I like the pink ones.
supernova.
Yeah.
In
And
the
if you're
nova,
Oasis, you'd have it
only
with
the
champagne.
outer layers of the
Right.
star's material are involved. And when the explosion has subsided, the star appears little the worse for wear.
'Tis but a
We have
scratch.
observed stars that have gone through such contortions more than once,
Ooh, like Cirque du Soleil.
but there is no second time for a supernova.
A champagne
In this case,
supernova
the greater part
in
of the
the
star's mass
sky.
is
I liked
converted
Wonderwall.
instantly into radiant energy. The bursting star may shine as brilliantly as 100 million normal stars.
Not that much, really.
When it is over, nothing remains except the intensely hot, newly revealed core of the star and an expanding cloud of gaseous debris.
And some hurt feelings.
Could such a supernova, or even a nova, have been the Star of Bethlehem?
Maybe.
There are some who think so. Although until recently, it was believed that there was no record of a nova about the time of the birth of Jesus.
Yeah, because they only had Fords.
There was another objection, too.
That's a
in
card
the
joke.
fact that a nova would have been
Well, that was only
visible
of his
to
accord.
everyone on the night side of the earth, while the Christmas star
cruising on a Saturday
was
night.
not seen by everyone. Nevertheless, in 1958, a Chinese scholar, going back over ancient records, came upon an account of a guest star
On the
that
Tonight
was
Show.
visible in the constellation of Aquarius.
This
in the
is the
springtime
dawning
morning
of the
skies
age.
of
No,
5 BC.
no, please.
Fine.
There's a possibility then, if our dates for the birth are somewhat in error, that
Somewhat?
such an object might have been the biblical star. But the object in 5 BC was not, apparently, a bright one.
Nor is he.
And there's the further objection
That's me.
that it was also described as a sweeping star,
Or a sucking
a
star.
phrase often applied to comets. And one, of course, which leads to the question of whether the Star of Bethlehem may have indeed been a comet.
You know, it's amazing how boring he can make both supernovas and virgin births.
Yes, it is.
Da-da-da-da.
Wow. This brings me back to the Mars record.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
called a trauma echo, Steve.
Yes, it is. I had a little bit of PTSD from that record, I guess.
We discuss that in therapy all the time.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, he can take the most exciting things, the Christmas star at Bethlehem, and make it boring.
Bland. Bland is the word I came up
Yes,
with. Like,
bland.
you know, I just, whenever I hear his voice, and I realize I shouldn't, but I just instinctively want to push him down and take his lunch money. Like, it just seems like I should do it on principle.
I could just imagine this guy like sitting in his grandmother's basement, like all these books and stuff about stars and this big telescope in the basement. Well, I found that Dionysus he discovered in 7 or 6 BC.
Absolutely.
And the best part, of course, is that do we know? Well, no. But we can find out. We're not going to, but we could.
Ladies and gentlemen, the beginning of the content era.
So, our gift to you and our gift to each other, I guess, is we have written some jokes.
Yeah, we have done essentially a joke swap where we have written jokes for each other, for the other person to read. They have not seen them, so they are going to read them live right here, and then we will try them out. Jokes that Steve wrote for me. Last month, the wrestling program AEW held a show in Fishers, Indiana. I love the idea of watching guys oiled up and slapping each other, bouncing on the equivalent of a giant mattress. I also enjoy watching wrestling. Yeah, all right. Next one. Lead and gasoline tied to over 150 million excess cases of mental health disorders, study suggests. I also want to apologize for adding that to that because of my love for White Castles and Taco Bell. The TV show, What We Do in the Shadows, ends on its own glorious terms. Unlike what I do in the shadows, usually ends in shame and sadness.
Oh, no.
And the last one for me. The internet congratulates Tom Cruise for finally looking old in new photos. Bro finally aged. Not so similar to what my kids say to me. Dad, stop aging.
Do you like those?
I do. That first joke was pristine. You should have saved that for the end.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
That was a good one.
All right, so for you guys, I have them in an envelope here, and you'll just open them up, and you can read the script, just so that you guys are aware. This is it's a skit. You guys are newscasters. All you got to do is open it up, and here you go.
Okay.
The Oscar goes to... Curse you, fat fingers.
I know. Oh, it's 2 pages. This is really long.
Oh.
Yeah, I worked hard on this.
Lengthy.
Hello, I'm Scooby Dukins, and here are today's top stories. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose is throwing his hat into the celebrity spirits ring. In honor of his band's heritage, he has lent his name to a moonshine company's newest product, titled November Grain. It is a subtle blend of whiskey, vodka, bathtub gin, and liquid cocaine. Only 200 bottles were made, as the FDA rated the distillery after an anonymous tip.
Sounds like a hot bottle, Scooby.
I tried some. Imagine French kissing sandpaper, followed by a rubbing alcohol boilermaker. My kids loved it.
You know what French kissing sandpaper is like.
From our neighbors to the north, the Canadian Royal Mounties are racing against the clock to stop a new bird flu variant from jumping species and potentially becoming the new pandemic. It was first identified in a goose in Alberta with dark green plumage. The bird was confirmed sick when it was seen by local hunters releasing purplish-brown excrement while in flight over a herd of moose. The search continues to locate the sick bird for further research. So in summary, a spruce goose dropped a loose puce deuce on a moose and is currently still on the loose.
Sounds pretty ridiculous when you put it like that, Scooby.
I just read the news, Eric.
I suppose. I mean, I know you don't respond to my fan mail.
Next story. On entertainment. In an effort to directly combat Bible Man, the Christian superhero famous in homeschool groups across America, Marvel is introducing a new hero with an explicitly Hebrew background. While still in early development, the new hero will be a mild-mannered Jew by day. Not too Jewish, mind you. Just Jewish enough, said Kevin Feige, in A Super Jew by Night. Oh, but only 6 days a week, obviously Feige interjected. Provisional sketches show an ultra-Orthodox male performing a roundhouse kick on a mugger while saying the catchphrase, I know Jew-jitsu. A belt with the throwing stars of David and a yarmulke. A yarmulke. I can't even pronounce that word.
Yarmulke.
Okay, yarmulke. Okay. I've never seen it written down on paper before. And a yarmulke that when thrown functions like an adorably tiny Captain America shield. The movie rights have already been sold, with Paul Rudd attached to the project. The character, tentatively titled Seder Man, is scheduled to be released in 5786.
That Halloween costume would be amazing, Scooby. But when are we going to talk about us?
We are workplace proximity associates, Eric. Nothing more. I have more emotional investment in my dishwasher detergent than in you.
I didn't know you liked detergent that much.
And lastly, as social media companies continue to come under increasing pressure to limit potentially negative outcomes on society and younger users specifically, there is a new movement in Silicon Valley, anti-social media. Advocacy groups have proposed changing X to F off and have also petitioned Mark Zuckerberg to launch Out of My Facebook. These sites are designed to actively discourage users from interacting digitally and then push them aggressively back into the physical world.
Scooby, will you finally be my friend on F-Off?
Yes.
Really?
No. And that's the news for today. I'm Scooby Dukins, and I would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for those federal agents posing as kids.
All right. Lastly, there were just a handful of jokes from X.
Oh, yeah.
If we wanted to read any of
Yes.
those, if people were people were interested in some of them.
Absolutely.
So, and I was thinking that like people could just kind of like grab the ones that they want. We can just kind of read round robin for a little bit.
Yeah. So if I can, I want to bring up one that was a little exciting for me. Woo! So here's the joke. The former The Voice winner, Sundance Head, is recovering after shooting himself on a hunting trip. Later at home, he stabbed himself making a sandwich, spilled a drink all over himself, and then somehow, even though he was in the kitchen, stepped on a rake. Now,
Simple joke.
Now, what's funny about that is that the actual guy, Sundance Head, replied to that comment.
Oh.
I am not kidding. He simply said, that about sums it up. Ha ha, with a heart emoji. So I replied, say, glad you have a good sense of humor. Hope you get better soon.
Yeah, and like there were certain ones that I enjoyed also. Like this was a joke that I wrote that I personally was proud of, and just like I just wanted to get it out there, so I just wanted to say it. All right, British indie band Sports Team was robbed at gunpoint in Vallejo, California. Sports Team gave their statement to police officer, which spoke to reporter, who then wrote for website. The band is currently resting at hotel.
Actually, if you don't mind, I kind of wrote one myself.
I'd love to hear it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't apologize for much, and this is one of them. McDonald's is reintroducing the snack wrap in 2025. When asked why they decided to finally bring it back, the CEO responded, "I have a family."
Nice. Here's another one of my recent favorites. A 14-year-old boy from New Jersey was arrested for allegedly starting a forest fire. The boy confessed he said it when he found that Jersey Shore released the new season.
Okay, upon reading of 43 monkeys escaping from a research facility in South Carolina, the executor of Charlton Heston's estate took a deep breath, closed his laptop, shut his eyes, and said with deep resignation to no one in particular, "So it begins."
That's good. Yeah, this was one that I wrote. Apple starts iPhone 16 production in India, diversifying supply chain away from China. You know the world economy is bad when even Apple is getting tired of everything being made in China.
This is funny. During the Summer Olympics opening ceremony, South Korean athletes were incorrectly introduced as North Korea. This is widely recognized as the worst mix-up since Taco Bell was introduced as Mexican food.
All right. Well, Steve, this has been your baby all this time. Thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Yes, thank you.
This has been a ton of fun.
This has been fun for all of us kind of hanging out here and sharing jokes and stuff has been fun.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
God bless us, everyone.
So from all of us here at the Final Word Podcast, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you